Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome to Saturday's edition of Inside Arsenal. I hope you're all having a good start to the weekend wherever you're watching this around the world. Not too much going on, not too many developments since yesterday's video. So going to spend quite a bit of time looking at some of the questions that you guys have been sending in and comments that you've been sending in. Lots of you wanted to talk about Declan Rice and Thomas Partey. They're the two players who seem to be dominating all the questions in the comments at the moment. Remember, please, if you want to send in anything that you want to talk about Arsenal, please do reply to this video in the comments section. And it doesn't just have to be about transfers at the moment. I know it's transfer season. Of course, that's what everyone's talking about. That's the big thing. That's what everyone wants to know about and wants to debate. But anything you want to talk about Arsenal, anything that you think, oh, maybe I'll ask that question, please do send it in. It doesn't just have to be about transfers. It'd be good to actually have a bit of a broad range of questions rather than just all transfer chit chat at the moment. So we'll get to those at the end of the video. And a couple of things to talk about first. Jurrien Timber, Ajax, and we'll discuss a little bit about Kai Havertz as well. That one's moving on, getting very, very close to being completed now. But in terms of Jurrien Timber, that one's gone a little bit quiet since David Ornstein broke the news a while ago that Arsenal had moved for Timber with a bid that was about sort of 30 million euros that Ajax wanted more from. My understanding of the Timber situation is that there is progress being made with that. Someone I've spoken to at Arsenal, he said he was very much ongoing that situation, and that so I'm expecting a second bid to go in at some point pretty soon. I've heard as well that Timber is very, very excited about a potential move to Arsenal, which might well help them because there is other interest. Bayern Munich have been linked with him, but as far as I'm aware, he's very interested, shall we say, in a move to Arsenal and this deal potentially getting done this summer. Now, Ajax and Arsenal are quite a way away in the valuation at the moment. I think Arsenal's bid, like David reported, was around the sort of 30 million euro mark. We've heard reports, certainly from Holland anyway, over there in the Netherlands, that they were after about sort of 60 million. So you can see the difference in valuation there is pretty vast. But there is hope that Arsenal and Ajax can get to an agreement and this move can get over the line at some point in the near future. I don't expect Arsenal to go anywhere near the sort of 60 million mark that Ajax are looking for. I expect if a deal does get agreed, it's going to be pretty far below that. I think maybe around between the 40 and the 50 million would be the sort of number that they would be looking at, and depending on the structure of the deal and how much Arsenal would have to pay up front, how much of it would be structured over the next few years is going to be key to this one. But I think from a player's point of view, if this move can get agreed, I don't think there's going to be too many issues in Timber completing that move to Arsenal, because from what I'm aware, he's very, very keen on getting this move done this summer. And why wouldn't you be? It's a very attractive club to join at the moment. I think if Arsenal come knocking and you're in that sort of 22-year-old sort of age bracket and a top developing player amongst in Europe, there's not many clubs you'd rather go to at this precise moment in time than Arsenal, to join up with the squad that's being built, to work with a young coach like Arteta, who so many players want to work for and whose reputation is just growing by the week. And the fact that Bayern Munich are believed, and I don't know this for sure about Bayern Munich, but certainly there are strong reports that Bayern are interested in Timber. The fact that maybe a club like them are involved, and yet it certainly appears, from what I understand, that he is very much focused on trying to get a move done to Arsenal this summer. I think that says a lot about where Arsenal are at a club at the moment and the sway that they have. And fingers crossed that one can get done. I think he's certainly going to bring a lot of versatility to Arsenal. I don't know loads about him, as I've said in previous videos. I have sort of spent a little bit of time recently talking to some people who do know him and how he plays, and they think he'd be a very, very solid addition to Arsenal. That he can play a few different positions. Passing wise, he's very, very good. He's very comfortable on the ball, plays the ball out well, and seems to sort of tick all the boxes that Arsenal are looking for when it comes to their defenders at the moment. So fingers crossed that one can get done. But as far as I'm aware, progress is being made, but still the clubs have got quite a way to go before they can sort of agree a fee and we can move on to the stage of the player discussing things with Arsenal and getting personal terms over the line, which I don't think would be an issue whatsoever. It's just about agreeing a fee. And obviously Arsenal got a lot of irons in the fire at the moment. They're focusing on a lot of players, trying to get deals done for a lot of players, tricky deals done for a lot of players. So it's not the easiest, but yeah, that's what they get paid the big money to get done. So fingers crossed on Timber. Second bid expected pretty soon. Hopefully that will be a lot nearer to Ajax's valuation, and this one can really start to move forward, and Arsenal can get this one over the line. Okay, Kai Havertz, this one is certainly very, very close to now being over the line. In fact, I'm expecting it to be done pretty swiftly after the club's agreed a deal. Havertz's medical is, I believe, going to be taking place this weekend. And, wouldn't even surprise me if this one's announced or confirmed pretty early next week. I hate to put a time frame on it because you never know. In Arsenal, we know of signed players before and have had to wait a couple of weeks before an announcement has taken place because they want to get everything in place. I mean, Havertz is away at the moment, so it kind of depends if he can get over to London Colney and do all the media stuff that Arsenal want to do. And, Arsenal like to have all that in place before they confirm a transfer. They don't really like doing it while a player's away and then waiting a couple of weeks before they can do all the in-house media. So it might be that the deal's done, it's all agreed, it's all finalised, and we have to wait a couple of weeks for Havertz to finish his holiday, come back and do all this stuff in London Colney before it gets officially sort of put out there by the club. But as far as I'm aware, that one's certainly, very much close to completion now, and I'm fully expecting Havertz to potentially be Arsenal's first summer signing of the transfer window for around the sort of 65 million all-in mark, and that's going to be the start of what could well be a busy summer. Of course, Declan Rice is a big thing at the moment. I'm not going to spend much time because I know there's plenty of questions on that at the moment. And to be honest, in terms of actually where we are in that transfer, there's just I don't have any update on it from what I've spoken about recently. I don't understand that a third bid has gone in yet. I don't think Manchester City have bid yet. Not that I would know that. My contacts aren't really Manchester City contacts, so I don't know when their bid will go in. But when it does, the way this transfer is playing out at the moment and the way that information is sort of leaking out of West Ham whenever bids come in, I expect we're going to hear pretty soon when that bid from City does come in. And it hasn't come out. That news hasn't filtered out yet, which suggests to me that they haven't made their move. Arsenal's will go in at one point. I can't say, I don't know, but I just do know that this is still very much an ongoing situation at Arsenal. And we wait to see how it is resolved, but sort of if they can get a deal done for Timber, get that over the line, can spend 60 odd million on Havertz and potentially get Rice for what's going to have to be around 100 million. That is hugely significant outlay in the transfer window for Arsenal. Would be record-breaking stuff. Would certainly be a big sign of intent from the club, and whether that would be the end of the transfer business, I don't know. I think if they could get those three through the door, then the focus would very much turn to shifting some players out, trying to get some money in for the players that they want to sell or are open to selling this summer. And then they can probably have another little look during the final weeks of the window to decide if there's anything else they want to do, like to strengthen the squad ahead of the start of the new season, or certainly ahead of the start of the Champions League kicking off again. But I think these three incomings that they're really focused on at the moment, I think once those are resolved, then the focus will probably switch to potentially moving some players on and getting some money into the club, which is going to be very, very important this summer, as I've discussed before, especially if they're spending however much, 200 million on 3 players. If, and of course it's a very big if, those deals for those players get done. Okay, let's move on to some of your questions and your comments. First of all, let's go with Mikey, who says, if we get Rice and Lavia, definitely sell Thomas Partey. If not, keep. I kind of agree. I'm not, I've said it before. I think it's a big risk selling Thomas Partey, whatever happens this summer. I talked about this a lot yesterday, and I've seen so many of the aggregators on Twitter have sort of taken what I've said, left out other key moments of it, and put it all over social media that I'm basically saying that Thomas Partey is going to say that he's happy at Arsenal, he's rejected moves elsewhere, which absolutely, of course, if you watched yesterday's video, you will know that's not what I said at all. I said that from a footballing point of view, he is very satisfied, very happy at Arsenal, and he would like to play in the Champions League. But that doesn't mean he's staying by any means, because Arsenal are willing to let him go. That's a fact. If a decent move comes in, they're open for it, depending on what else happens in the summer. And if a huge offer comes on the table from a club in Saudi Arabia or even from Juventus, someone like that, and Partey knows that Arsenal are happy to let him go, then as much as he is settled here and he would like to play in the Champions League, he will certainly think about that. So that's not what I said yesterday at all. But I think if Arsenal get 2 players in the summer, 2 midfield players, considering they're probably, Granit Xhaka is going to go as well, I would agree maybe then you consider Thomas Partey going. But I think for me, if they just get Rice as well as Havertz, I don't think they should be considering selling Thomas Partey. For me, I think it'd be a mistake. I think it would leave the squad, it would weaken the squad. And I just don't see it. From a business point of view, I can understand it. I can see it. 2 years left on his contract, 30-year-old player who's injured a lot of the time. They're never going to get a better chance to make some money on him than this summer. So I can kind of understand it from a business point of view. But from a footballing point of view, to me, it's just too big a risk. And it would weaken the squad ahead of a return to the Champions League. And that Thomas Partey position is so important. And even if that is where you envisage Declan Rice playing, even if Jorginho's still in the squad, I still think there's a place for Thomas Partey this season for me. Because let's not forget, yes, he had a poor end to the season. Yes, his form dropped off, but he wasn't the only player whose form dropped off at the end of last season. And for 2/3 of it, he was absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, if maybe a Lavia comes in as well, which I haven't heard anything on that. So I don't know if I don't even know if that interest is genuine or not. I've not heard it. I'm sure, lots of other reporters have reported it, but I haven't heard it myself, so I can't really say anything on it. But if someone like Rice and Lavia came in, 2 players as well as Havertz, then maybe, yeah, then selling Thomas Partey might make a little bit more sense. But if not, not for me. Okay, Tom, I think it's Tom here, or Tomei Brzezinski. Sorry if I've got that pronunciation horribly wrong. But you say if Kai Havertz lives up to Leverkusen standards, he'll be worth over 100 million next season. It's worth a gamble. Good deal from Arsenal. Yeah, I kind of agree. It all rests on how he performs, basically, at the end of the day, doesn't it? We're all going to have our opinions on it. I've got reservations about Arsenal spending this much money on Kai Havertz because I've just not seen him really produce for Chelsea, but I also take into account that he was playing for Chelsea, who are a bit of a basket case of a club at the moment. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything that he struggled to perform for them. And I know people who know far more about Kai Havertz than I do, and they think he's still got all the potential to be an absolute wonderful footballer who could fit Arsenal's system really, really well and could bring a lot to the squad that they don't already have. So I'm just going to take a sort of sit back approach on Kai Havertz and see how he performs next season. If he performs well, then no one's going to talk about his price tag. It's a very similar situation to Ben White or to Aaron Ramsdale. Everyone was talking about their price tags when Arsenal signed him. Everyone was having a go at Aaron Ramsdale, including me. I thought Arsenal were paying way too much for Aaron Ramsdale, and I thought it was a stupid deal for them to do. And, I've happily eaten my words since then because he's been a brilliant signing and no one pays any attention to how much they paid for him. The same for Ben White. Everyone focused on that 50 million, but he's proven to be an absolute bargain since Arsenal signed him because he's been brilliant. And if Havertz comes in and does that, then no one's going to talk about spending 60 odd million on him. But if he doesn't perform, then they will. So ultimately, it's down to him and how he performs to how this transfer does pan out. Thanks very much for your question. Now, let's move on to what Joe has to say now. Joe says, comes across like Havertz was a priority target considering nobody was interested in paying more than 50 million for him. And we've paid well over the odds for what he's produced at Chelsea since he arrived. Putting 80 million bids in for Rice, considering we know they want 100 million, was just going to annoy them. Look, Havertz wasn't the priority. Havertz was just one of the priorities. It's one that not many of us really expected. Well, certainly didn't expect. I would never have expected it. But it's one that Arsenal clearly were planning for, were plotting, and have got the deal done. But just because he signed first doesn't mean that he was a priority. Arsenal attacked this window with a lot of irons in the fire. We're seeing it at the moment. There's talks going on with, really advanced talks going on in terms of Havertz, Partey and Timber. So it's not that he was just a priority. It's just he's the one they've managed to get over the line first. And maybe putting 80 million bids in, considering we know West Ham was going to annoy them. Maybe that is a bit silly. But again, I've got to look at it from a business point of view as well. As frustrated as it is for me because I want Declan Rice to sign, I look at it from Arsenal's point of view and you think, why would you go straight in at that number? Because then West Ham could maybe say, all right, you've bid 100 million first up, we want 120 million. But the fact they've bid 8 million first up might mean they get the job done for 100 million and it saves themselves money in the long term. Again, it just depends. We have to wait and see if they get the deal over the line. If they don't, then they're open for criticism for the way they've approached it. But we don't know if they haven't got it done yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. And then I think then that's the time for criticism, not right now, because we don't know if Arsenal are going to sign him or not. So I think we just have to wait and see how it all plays out. Okay, Hassan now says, stop glorifying English players. Declan Rice is not great. If he was, West Ham would not have been in a relegation battle. It's just rubbish, I'm afraid. But thanks for getting involved, Hassan. I do appreciate it. But I just don't agree with you. The fact that West Ham are in a relegation battle is nothing to do with it. You can't paint Declan Rice in a bad picture because of that. He's led them to a European final, to a European trophy, their first trophy in 40 years. sometimes that's going to take away from what they do in the league. You know, for the last 2 seasons, they've been up in fighting for Europe, and he's been absolutely integral to that. Just because they've had one bad season in the league, it's not Declan Rice's fault. Jack Grealish was the key player, was the captain for Aston Villa. They got relegated. Does that make him a bad player? No. Manchester City, he's still going to sign him for 100 million. And look what he's done for them since he's settled in at Manchester City. So you cannot, so many top players have been relegated with their teams. It's not his fault. It's 11 players on the pitch. You can be the best player in the world. If you're playing in a team around you that doesn't perform, they're going to struggle, you know, and it's just plain and simple. So I don't think West Ham being in a relegation battle this season, which they were never desperately involved in. I always thought they would stay up. I don't think that base is anything down to Declan Rice. And you've got to look at what else they've done this season. They've won their first trophy, and he's been the captain who's led them to their first trophy in 40 odd years and their first European trophy in 60 years or whatever it is. So I think that's a little bit harsh, Hassan, but thanks very much for getting involved. Finally, now, Ryan's one. Actually, no, there's 2 more. Sorry, let's go with Jeff. Jeff Brown here said, our problem isn't the first 11 is strong. The problem is using the bench generally brings quality down. We need 2 players of equal quality in each position. If Partey and Xhaka go, we need 2 world-class players in for them. We also need plan B striker different from Jesus and Nketiah. Yeah, I agree. I've said it before. I think Arsenal's problem last season definitely wasn't the starting 11. When they were there, they were brilliant. They were winning pretty much every game. It was when some of those players dropped out and the players who came in, that's when the level dropped. And that's what Arsenal needed to improve this summer. And that's where Manchester City is so strong. Pep can rotate. You can have 15, 16, 17, 18 players, basically, and he just rotates them all and keeps them fresh. And when he rotates them, the level doesn't drop. And that's what Arsenal need to get to. That's what they need to aspire to. Obviously, they're way behind Manchester City in terms of their development and what's going on. So, yeah, I think what they've done in the starting 11 in the last 2 years has been brilliant. Now it's about improving the squad. And that's why Kai Havertz necessarily doesn't mean that he's coming in to be in the starting 11. It could be that he's coming in to improve that first 15, 16, 17, 18 players, which is going to be so important for Arsenal. And it's why I agree again, Jeff, that if they do move on Partey and Xhaka, then they need to absolutely recruit top quality players to replace them. I don't think Havertz and Rice is enough if those 2 players go out. I think it needs to be Havertz, Rice and someone else to counter for potentially letting Xhaka and Thomas Partey go. And finally, from Ryan says, how much say does Declan Rice have in the transfers? West Ham accept a big offer from Man City. Does he have a say in it at all? Well, absolutely. Of course he does. I think West Ham can accept a bid from Manchester City, but Declan Rice doesn't have to go there. He can say no. But I doubt he would say that. If Arsenal don't have a bid accepted and West Ham do, and Man City do, I can't imagine Rice would end up turning that down to stay at West Ham for another season. Because at the end of the day, it's Manchester City. If you're going to go somewhere, if you want to take the next step in your career, and if the only club who has a bid accepted is Manchester City, you're going to go. But so he does have a big say in it. Definitely, he could say no, reject it, and stay if he really just wants to move to Arsenal, and Arsenal don't have a bid accepted. But I don't see why he would do that, because that just mean he'd have to stay at West Ham. So, and you know, Manchester City, for all he might prefer a move to Arsenal, which we believe he does, if they can't agree a deal and Manchester City do, then I think he goes to Manchester City. I'll be very surprised. But yeah, he does have a say in it. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate your time as always. And that's it for today's edition of Inside Arsenal. Thank you very much for watching. You can also listen. Of course, now I'm putting this out on podcast formats as well. So on Amazon, on Google, on Spotify, you can also find these as well. So you can listen to these editions on the go, or you can watch it as usual on YouTube. Thank you very much for getting involved, everyone. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comment. Please do fire some more in, and I'll get over to them tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.